Okay, time to go live. Time to go live. I'm Dave Casler, and I'll be back in just a second. All right. We are ready. Sorry about being a moment or two late. Okay, we are on Starlink. So we'll see how that does. We've got this trade-off between Starlink and the local internet, and I've got to pick one here at some point. The local internet was getting really good, and then they came out here and did some work. My roof is a relay point for them. They did some work on that because it wasn't relaying properly, and we started getting delays and dropouts on our local internet. So now we are trying Starlink. It says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, as such viewers will experience buffering. I apologize if that happens. It says the link status is poor. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I've been looking at the idea of getting Starlink for the RV because we're going off to Dayton very soon here. We were just in Moab. We were in Moab last week, and I did not have the thing there. Let's see. We are on the 2nd. On the 13th, right after Mother's Day, somewhere around in there, we'll start working our way to Dayton, Ohio. We've been reading all kinds of stories about the hurricanes and everything that's happening back then. And I keep looking at the calendar and saying, yeah, it's about time for all that to stop now because we're going to go to Dayton. So I don't know what we're getting ourselves into going to Dayton. I'm looking forward to it. We did not have live stream last week because we were in Moab. We had our first shakedown was just about 10 miles up the road to an RV park up there. And the purpose of that one was mainly to make a list of all the things we forgot. And we did. We made a long list. And then we went to Moab and had a very nice time there. A fair amount of rain, but we did do some fun driving. We went down to visit Canyonlands National Park. We saw the Newspaper Rock and so on. We had some good food, so we had a good time there. This was more of a shakedown cruise to find out, okay, what works, what doesn't with the vehicle, with everything like that. So we got pretty good. Now the actual the big event is coming up here and is going to be Dayton. And I did not go last year. I wish I had, but I'm going this year. And so I'm going to be wearing a shirt like this, either this turquoise one or the blue one. And please stop me and say hello and introduce yourself to me. You might get a selfie with me. I would like to meet Augies, is what I would like to do there at Dayton. And when there are 33,000 hams there, that means there's lots of Augies. I will be tending to kind of keep coming back to the ARRL booth. There's a section there that will be a booth, and in it will be the guy at the ARRL who works with YouTubers, Steve Goodgame, and he'll be a good guy to talk to anyway, and I might just stop by there since he's kind of my contact for the videos that I have with the league. Okay, so now I got an email just a moment ago from Harry Rundle, and he said conditions are not good on HF tonight. And I just looked and went both 20 and 40 meters, and he's right. They're not good tonight. So I don't think I'm going to try to get on the air with people tonight. Now, next week I'll be here, and so hopefully in a week we can wait for all these geomagnetic storms to pass and so on, and we will have a good time on the air. Now, I've spent the day sorting through paperwork, getting ready to sell the airplane. Got a guy by the name of Ken who lives up in Fruta, which is near Mack Airport. And it looks like, well, I know he's already paid for it, actually. We just have to fill out the paperwork. So I spent much of the day going through paperwork, digging through mountains of stuff that I'd just thrown in a corner. He wants to buy my headset too, so I had to find the box for that. And I've got that, and it's I think ready to go and in good shape. So I will be saying bye-bye to the airplane and shed a tear or two, I think. You know, I did not buy an airplane to have one. I bought it to fly it. I did not learn to get my pilot's license to achieve some sort of a milestone by having a pilot license. I got it because I want to fly. But I'm also aging, and I've been having a lot of trouble lately with falling. And in fact, when I last went up there 2 weeks ago today to fill up the aircraft with gas and stuff so I could take Ken up on a flight on Friday, I fell twice and out on the tarmac, and that is not a good place to fall because you've got nothing to hold on to get up. So I didn't have my cane with me or any ladder or anything like that that I could use, except the second time I did have a ladder nearby, but it was sad. Anyway, it will be going bye-bye on Saturday, I think. I'm going to go up to the Experimental Aircraft Association and meet Ken there. And like I said, I spent the day preparing paperwork, so it's just going to be more of a sign these two things, and here's all the paperwork that goes with the airplane, and you're on your way. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm very disappointed that we've got to this stage where I have to let it go. So, but I've got a ham radio. I don't have to worry about falling down while sitting in front of the radio. I do have to worry about falling down while dealing with antennas. Now, we had an antenna here, a mast. We had a mast that was 30 feet high, built from Home Depot parts. As it turned out, it was inadequately guyed, and we just had guy at the 25-foot point, and it fell. So we're going to, it bent in the wind, so we took it down. And so we're going to try and repair it and get that thing back in the air so we can do testing of antennas and so on. The next antenna I'm going to do is going to be a delta loop. So we'll play with that, see how that works. I've never built a delta loop, a vertical delta loop. So a vertical delta loop means a triangular antenna. So we'll do that. Now I also, as somebody pointed out last week or the week before, I got some of those 4-foot pieces of military pole that fit into each other and go up quite high. And found, I learned something, that they are not made for antennas primarily, they are made for holding up camouflage netting. And so, okay. And anyway, I've got 40 feet worth of them now, so figure out the best way to use those so we can maybe set up another 30-foot pole or something like that. Again, double guying so that there's high guys and middle guys. And they came with, I ordered these. They're circular things that fit between the stages and have got holes in them for guys. You can either put 4 guys or 3 guys. I'm thinking with the tall one, I may go with the 4 guy solution, because you can actually put up the guys before you raise the antenna, raise it and then hold that 4th guy out there till he gets up to the top and then tie that guy off. So that'll look pretty well. I wanted to talk a little bit about MFJ. They have announced to the world two things. One, they never really recovered from the pandemic, which surprises me a little bit because I know my channel got quite a surge during the pandemic, and I would think ham radio in general would, but they said they've not quite recovered from the pandemic. And second, Martin Jew is now in his 80s, and he wants to retire. Now, the standard thing you do when you do that is you sell the company to somebody who's going to turn it around. One of MFJ's problems, they do have a reputation for iffy quality, which is sad. They make really good products. But like I got an antenna from them, which was a 20-meter J-pole style antenna. It didn't work. And so I asked them for the drawings, the manufacturing drawings, and discovered that all the dimensions were wrong. So I remanufactured the antenna to the correct dimensions. It worked great, right out of the box. No need for further tuning. So this is one thing. The other thing is that the MFJ's catalog is very cluttered. MFJ doesn't seem to ever remove anything from production. Chameleon is kind of the opposite. You hardly get a product out and it's already moved to something new. But in MFJ, like, they still publish an old book I wrote about 30 years ago. And it was an adventure novel involving ham radio. And of course, the technology involved has changed completely. So, you know, the book is no longer really relevant except for people who've never heard of transistors and so on. It's not that bad, but it is old. And now the other thing that I'm very concerned about with MFJ, they've got about 200 employees, is the loss of expertise. These people know how to build antennas, build antenna analyzers, build SWR meters, build everything under the sun, okay? They know how to do it, and if you start letting these people go, they're gone. They're not coming back. If they're young, they've got to get another job of some kind. If they're older, maybe they just want to retire. So when we let MFJ go, the loss to the ham radio community is immense. As I've said many times, if MFJ didn't exist, somebody would have to make it. And that's really true. And they make everything under the sun. The problem is, if you want an antenna tuner, you've got 20 or 30 to pick from. I would think they would want a line of low power tuners, high power tuners, both manual and automatic. Okay. Now, yes, I understand there's a need for specialization and so on and so forth, but they make so many different things. Look at the SWR meters that they offer for sale. There's dozens of them. How many do you need? Well, you know, they've tried to meet a market with lots of people, but the problem is it would be sort of as if the Ford Motor Company still offered every model it ever made, all the way back to the Model T, that you could go order a new Model T or a Model A or whatever it may be. Obviously, they move on with the times. And they make new cars, and they will stock parts for 3 or 4 years, and then they leave it to the independent parts providers like Napa and O'Reilly's and some of the others like that to provide the parts at a lower rate for people who are trying to fix their 25-year-old car. Okay. So this is a problem that MFJ has. It has too many items for sale, and too many of them are on back order. And they've got to somehow address this reputation of lower quality. And I myself have run into problems. When I first got my loop from MFJ, which I paid for out of channel funds, $500. It didn't work. I had to troubleshoot the stupid thing and found out that the little stepper motor in there was the limit switches on that were set up wrong. And I knew how to fix that. But I'm not sure that every brand new general would know how to fix that. So I also had another problem where I guess it got dropped out at field day or something. And one of the plates of the big capacitor that they've got are made of a very soft metal. And the drop caused one of those plates to bend down a little bit, shorting against the one below it. Again, I fixed it. Not of a problem. So anyway, I don't know, those are my thoughts on MFJ. I wish someone would be the knight in shining armor who would go pick it up, give Martin his retirement income, keep those 200 people employed, and keep providing the amateur radio market with stuff that nobody else supplies. So anyway, my thoughts. I'll be seeing MFJ, I assume, at Dayton, and I'm going to be asking a lot of these questions. I'm not sure that Martin travels anymore. When I was there 2 years ago, he was not. So, and I'm in my early 70s now, so you may see me puttering around in a little scootmobile. I'm going to try walking the first day. If that doesn't work, I'm going to go get one of those little scootmobiles that you can ride. And they're $75 a day, but oh, they're worth it. When I went out to tour the flea market, I used one of those, and it was just marvelous. It's good for somebody like me who really can't walk very far. I've been having trouble with falling. I've been taking some therapy from people who think they can fix that. I wish they could. But, pretty soon I'm going to have to go around on wheels. They suggested a walker, and I'm not ready for that. No, the cane, yes. Okay, let's go look at the comments with the understanding that we're probably not going to be able to get on the air tonight because there's some geomagnetic storm or something, and it's kind of closed up the HF bands, which happens at this point in the solar cycle. Okay. Sagart said, welcome to Augie's Special. Bill Myers, KE0OG, good evening, Dave, and all Augies. Jerry Simonowitz, hi from Delaware, from KB2GCG. Kevin Lehigh, hello, Dave and the group. Jose Morales, I can't do it right with false teeth, the little single trill on the R. KJ4 OSC, good evening from Florida. Mark French, hello. Hugo Quintana, good evening, Dave and fellow Augies. Hot and hot in Yuma, Arizona. Oh, I can imagine. From KK7DTF. It is 58 here. 17 relative humidity. And it was a beautiful, gorgeous day. Absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. Wind right now is 5 miles an hour from the northwest. Okay. Let's see. I can imagine it's getting hot already in Yuma. Chip Weekly, K3BEW. Hi all from the Great Smoky Mountains in western North Carolina. Bill Myers, KA8GIM, your 5-9 year into Wisconsin, Dave. Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave and all Augies, N5KVO, from the hill country of South Texas, currently 72. Bill Myers, KA8GIM, it's currently 49 degrees and drizzling rain here in Wisconsin. And David AC3HT says, good evening, Dave. And hello to all Augies, checking in from the mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania, where we currently have 65 degrees and 40% relative humidity. Sounds like a really nice, comfortable temperature. Eric Sund, hi Dave from N0EZX in Dallas-Fort Worth tonight. Terrence from London, hi Dave from a very wet London. I was in Amsterdam last week and got exactly the same weather there. Well, London and Amsterdam are not, for Americans, are not that far apart, okay? Yeah, I would imagine since they're both right on the English Channel, well, London's kind of inlet a little bit. I've been to both places. There is a BBC, I think it's BBC that puts it on, a show called Vandervalk. That's a typical police procedural set in Amsterdam with all the Dutch stuff, except it's in English, as English actors. So English actors who look vaguely like they're from Amsterdam. So it's one that we enjoy, but we're waiting for some more episodes to come out. Right now we're watching a police procedural called Brokenwood, which was set in New Zealand, a BBC type thing. And it's about a police detective who absolutely loves country music, even though none of his colleagues do. You know, all of the protagonists in police procedurals have to have some weird quirk. So that's what they have. So Terrence, good to hear from you this evening, where it is 2 a.m. And wow. Buds and Beads, hey Dave, was just watching your video on reducing RF interference. I'm a new operator trying out 11 meters. Your videos have been very helpful. Of course, 11 meters is the purview of CB, but a lot of people have come into ham radio via CB. And in other countries where they have a citizens band, it's considered to be a perfectly legitimate way to enjoy radio. So, Eric Sund, Dave, why is there no emergency freaks for hams to report an urgent or emergency situation as there is flying on 121.5 or the old CB Channel 9? There never has been. And one of the problems is that propagation varies so wildly. Now, with your local repeater, things could be different. There is a network of repeaters that goes from Grand Junction down into northern Arizona. And if you transmit on that, all the people on it will hear you. And if you ask for the Mesa County ARES, I think it is, they'll get in touch with 911 for you. And a lot of repeaters have this capability. Years ago, when autopatch was common, there are many times that if something happened around me, I would call 911 using the autopatch and give them the information about, somebody stuck in traffic or a flat tire or a little bumper bender or something like that. And let the police know, but the auto patches are largely gone. However, your cell phone, in many, many situations, does have access to 911. So I've been told not to say 911, say 911. There was an incident where somebody died, and a child was trying to call, and he said, after the event, I couldn't find the 11 key. So 911. 9/11 is a date in our history. 911 is a phone number that has 3 digits. Except, of course, in the UK where it's 999, and it's different in lots and lots of different places. Okay, so now there is at 14.3 megahertz or 14,300 kilohertz is where the Maritime Mobile Net meets. And they're more active at some times than the other, but at almost all times somebody is listening. Now, the purpose of the Maritime Mobile Net, besides just giving people on boats a chance to talk and people not on boats a chance to talk, is to handle emergencies. So if you're on your super yacht and you're traveling to Hawaii and you wake up one morning to find water in the bedroom, you use that to get help. Now, there was an incident during I think it was Sandy, a big storm that hit the New York area. In Boston, there was a tall ship. This means tall with all the sails, wooden ship kind of thing, sort of a retro sort of thing. And they thought the safest thing to do was to get the ship out of the harbor because they didn't want it destroyed. They figured they could run out the hurricane. Very, very poor decision making on their part. They called for help, SOS, quite a bit. But what they were finally able to do, and I think they did this with ham radio, was use, that's slipping my mind, it's in the 14.065 region or something like that, where you can call up a machine using Pactor, and send an email, and that's how they got help. They did lose some people. The ship was lost, but they were able to save a few people. So that was an example of some very poor judgment that ended up being less of a tragedy because somebody had ham radio on board. Now, I'm not sure of the specifics there, and maybe one of you are, and you can send me more details. I should make a note here that if you want to send me anything, which you can, send it to Ask Dave, all one word, Ask Dave at ARRL.org. Not .net like a lot of the email addresses are, but .org. That will come straight through to me. One of the nice things about doing that by email is you can attach some pictures. Please downsize them before you send them to me. I had somebody send me several pictures that were many megabytes, and it took some ingenuity, I guess I would say, to be able to extract them from the ether and get them to the point I could look at them. So, no, there is no emergency HF frequency. However, many repeater associations have got procedures for doing that. Now, why is there not one single nationwide emergency frequency? There never has been one. So, Michael C., KI5AE, I want to install an end-fed half-wave sloper. I will be feeding it from the low end. Nothing wrong with that. Everything that I have read shows feeding it from the high end. What is the difference between the low or high-end feed? The answer is how much coax you have to put up to get to the feed. Now, when I tested out the My Antennas end-fed half-wave 80 through 10, it kind of suggested in the instructions, kind of led me toward a inverted V configuration, which meant having one end kind of low, about 7 feet high, the middle up high, about 20 feet, that's not real high, and then the other end kind of low, about 7 feet. So it's sort of a flattened out inverted V. And I fed it at the end, and to my great surprise, because I didn't think this thing was going to work, it worked wonderfully. And I'm a great proponent of end-fed half-wave antennas now. The ARRL has a kit for 40 through 10, 40, 20, 15, and 10. The shorter antenna won't get the in-between ham bands so well. You can extend it to 80 meters. We did a video about that. But that antenna works well. Remember a dipole. Now, there are many people who will disagree with me on this, but to me, a dipole is a half wavelength of wire, pipe, whatever. It's a half wavelength. That is the distinguishing factor in a dipole. Now, if you get one of these antennas like 100 feet long or a G5RV or whatever, that's not, in my mind, a dipole because it's not resonant on a ham band. You have to play games with your tuner to get them to behave on the ham band. The Carolina Wyndham, I guess, is 102 feet long, fed in the middle, and with a tuner or antenna match, or however you want to say it. But in my mind, a dipole is a half wavelength of wire. Now, where you've got to feed the dipole, you can feed it at the center, which is traditional. You can feed it off center, which will require a balun, usually a current balun. And you can feed it at the end. And a 49-to-1 voltage balun will do fine there. And it will use, now you need a counterpoise at that point. But the outside of the shield, can act as the counterpoise in that case. I've tried that. It works really well. Okay, so I've built the ARRL antenna. We tested it, and then we lengthened it to cover 80 meters also, and of course it covers the bottom end 80 meters. And then we used a trick someone gave me of putting a high voltage capacitor in the middle of the wire, and we were able to move up the 80 meter part up to the upper part of 80 meters. And of course it covers all of 40. So there you go. Let's see, I just lost. Isn't Starlink way expensive? Yes, it is. You got to pay about $600 for the equipment. And they keep upgrading the equipment, so I'm like 2 generations behind. And it's $120 a month for a home, and more than that for an RV. So, okay. Is flying on 121.5, yeah, or the old CB Channel 9. The old CB Channel 9 is actually still there. Jerry Simonowitz FT8 was built for times like this. Had a fair number of contacts in 20 meters earlier today. Yes, that's good. Bill Myers, KE0OG, congratulations on selling the plane. Thank you, although I think more condolences. I did not work very hard to sell the plane. It probably took me 6 to 8 months. And then a guy who came and actually looked at it, because he's just up in Grand Junction in Fruita, came down, looked at it, told me all the things he didn't like about it, and left. And then suddenly, a couple months later, reappeared on email. And actually, he's already paid me for it, so we just need to sign the paperwork on Saturday. But that'll be something out of the way that will also pay for the Jeep. And I'll get that debt wiped off the books here. Okay, Channel 9 is dangerously close to Super Bowl number 6. That brings up a good point. There should be more designated emergency channels all across the spectrum. I've not seen a suggestion like that would come from the ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Service, would be the umbrella organization that should do that. So, Paul Russo, K2PB. Good evening, Dave. Is there a frequency you like to hang out on? I would like to try working you sometime. Frankly, I don't get on the air as much as I would like to because I'm too busy answering comments or coming up with new videos and stuff like that. You know, everybody seems to have their thing in ham radio. Some love contests, some like dancing, other people like experimenting, some people like antennas and so on. I guess what I really like is the YouTube and just sharing with people like you. I recently did a video where I started out the same way another channel that I watch, said, I'd like to thank my sponsor. My sponsor today is you, through Patreon and through PayPal and TipJar and all of that. You are my sponsor, and I really appreciate that. And it keeps us going, pays for the trip to Dayton, and not for the motorhome, believe me, but for the trip to Dayton. It'll buy the gas, and we'll do just fine. Okay. New frequency, let's see. Von Ziegel, hi Dave and all, from Don, N6 CD. Hello David and Augie's Worldwide from Lefty. McCammer Coach, question. Newbie Ham, VE5 MCR. Bought a gently used Comet CHAB 80-6 vertical, which will be mounted on a 35-foot tilt over. I forgot about a choker balun. Which one should you buy or make? Um, that's fed in such a way that I believe it's going to be a balanced feed. The easiest way to do it, although this is going to cost you about 25 bucks worth of coax, RG8X, is just loop it up about 9 inches in diameter. Loop it up, put some cable ties around it. That acts as an inductor for the outside of the outside of the shield. Now, the inner conductor and the inside of the shield are separate. They're not affected by the coiling, but it becomes a higher impedance for the common mode currents that are trying to get down through there on the outer part of the conductor, and can greatly reduce the stuff that gets down into your shack. Now, I'm trusting that you're putting in a lightning arrestor, ground rod, and all that sort of stuff, so that will ground that shield and get the rest of that off of there for you. Another way you can do that is a one-to-one balun, but why spend the money on that when you can do it with a little bit of coax? So, lefty raining here in Davenport, 62 degrees. Jerry Simonowitz, the pandemic made it hard to get parts to make products. Yes, I had an item or two be on back order for like 6 months. I'm talking at MFJ, and I still haven't reviewed it. I've got to do that. Charlie, KE0OG, hello from southwestern Missouri, where I've heard you've seen some tornadoes come through there. Jerry Simonowitz, some good products, but many are mighty fine junk. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the problem of quality there. They're trying to do too much with too many products. So what a person who's a build person there has to go pull the build instructions, build the product, and then pull the build instructions for a different product, make that, and so it's easy for them to get behind. They're more popular products they'll keep stock of. So like the 993B antenna tuner, which is 20 years old, but it's a great antenna tuner. Another thing that they don't do a huge amount of is update their products. Now, one that they have updated is their antenna antenna analyzer. And that one, that's the 259 and the 269. They're up to the D or E model. I have the old B model here, which still works fine, but there's some things it can't do. So the problem is that they make stuff that every ham needs. So I don't know what's going to happen to them. It's going to be difficult. It's a real blow to the amateur radio community. That's how they got the layout worked out, but sometimes not out of the box. McCamera Coach, it was sad to see MFJ go. I was interested in an antenna analyzer and loops. My last purchase was the tilt-over base for my telescopic mast. Now, they have announced that they are going to close. That does not mean they have closed. So if they'll accept your order, they will try to deliver on it. The antenna tuners that they have are very popular products, so they'll have some of those in stock. They're also making parts and things like that. I guess the first thing I thought of when I heard they were going down is they've got 200 employees. And Starkville is not a very big town. And they're going to major damage to the town's economy. And the problem I'm concerned about is if those people are out of work for more than a week or two, they're going to go find other jobs. And all that expertise is going to go poof. And it will be lost to the amateur radio community. So what they need in there is a turnaround manager who can trim the herd a little bit, all those little items that they have, discontinue them, concentrate on the ones that sell well, concentrate on manufacturing quality, and they'll do a turnaround. Now, somebody who does that might be, there's two companies that have the resources to pull off an acquisition. One is DX Engineering, the other is Ham Radio Outlet. None of the other ham radio companies are big enough to do that. Both Ham Radio Outlet and DX Engineering are really good at what they do. DX Engineering has picked up some items and pulled them into their orbit, like the Butternut HF9V. I have one, but it's so old, it's truly a rattle trap. But they picked that up and now sell it. And one of the things they did was completely rewrote the instruction book. And I compared the old and new instruction books and went, oh my goodness, what a difference. And so when I rebuilt mine a few years ago now, I used the DX Engineering instructions and also used their tuning instructions, which were quite different from Butternut's. And we were able to get it tuned. It's really hard. The 30-40 interaction is a problem, but we got it all to work. Okay. Leo Gustafson. Hello, Dave and everybody. KK7CLY checking in from Albany, Oregon. 54 degrees and overcast. Looking forward to rain and showers all week, so Oregon is back to normal. The Code Monk, that's how they got the name, I know, but it's sad because I think they take a lot of flack, but the fact is that, as I've said many times, if they didn't exist, somebody would have to invent them. So, oh, we're replaceable. Interested in antenna. Let's okay. Tim in Texas, MFJ will not be at Hamvention, nor will RNL. Oh my goodness. That's disappointing because MFJ has so much for sale. I think they'd be better being there. Yeah, well, Xenia. Can't go on the air yet anyway. Optical Man Jeff. KE0OG, DX Engineering, offered to purchase MSJ, but Martin turned them down. That's surprising. That is really surprising. I'll have to call Richard Stubbs and put in a word for them. Now, I will mention this, a very different culture between DX Engineering and MFJ. A very different culture. DX Engineering is of, by, and for super hams. The people who are there are major DXers, and they build the equipment the way they wanted it. And the name DX Engineering kind of tells you the story. And now they sell about everything, including a lot, but not all, of the MFJ products. What they could do, and there's nothing Martin could do to stop this, is set up shop next door, and as those people come out, rehire them. Now, DX Engineering's got a lot of intellectual property, so does MFJ, but to build a 20-meter dipole doesn't take a lot of engineering. You just make it. And sell them. And the reference antenna is still the MFJ 2010, which is an off-center fed dipole that takes care of all of 40 meters, all of 20, which are the two big bands that people will want to be in. And now that Cushcraft has come out with this new antenna, new vertical, which I'm extremely impressed with. I'm tempted to make that the reference antenna, but then they just disappeared on me. So, oh well. Okay, let's see. Ralph Leland, hi Dave and everyone, K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia, clear and 77 degrees. McCamera Coach, I'm also an amateur astronomer. Look at the sunspots in daytime, active, some big ones. I'll have to do that. Not directly, but do that. Hello Dave and everyone, this is from Eric, W7GSD, from Queen Creek, Arizona. Yeah, I've been hearing some news about Arizona recently on the national news about goings on in your state house. Oh yeah, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. VE5MCR, snow showers and rain, lovely. Terrence 2 Echo 0 IPK. The original Van der Valk starred Barry Foster. It was a good show. I enjoyed it. I don't know the name of the guy who's in it recently, and I don't know that we are seeing what you saw over there. We have, I don't know, we enjoy the British police procedurals. They're just really well done, well produced, compelling, and some of them are actually a little too intense for me. And I don't watch them. Van der Valk's on the edge of that. Stephen Arbogast. Why is ARRL sending me email thanking me for becoming a member? I've not had a license since in the 1980s. Well, Stephen, get one. Get yourself a tech license, and then whatever license you had back then, if you were a general or extra, a general or advanced, you'll be restored to general. And if you're extra, you'll be restored to extra. And there you go. Okay, now N1UGK added $20 to the chat revenue, which I greatly appreciate. Makes a big difference. I was looking at the analytics for this channel. About half of the income from Google itself comes from these Tuesday night live streams. And that gives you an idea because you see how they all are. They range from $10 to $100 or something like that. And then I get more than that from Patreon. Got quite a number of patrons. Every video at the end has a complete list of all the patrons. We update this list once a month, so we've already updated it for May, and that way we can thank every patron in every video. So watch that all the way through sometime and take a look at all the different levels on Patron. Let's see if I can remember the levels. Electron, neutron, proton, and quark are the $2, $5, $10, and $20 levels. Or I think Patron will let you put in whatever you want. Now the way Patron works, it's a monthly kind of thing. So it's a subscription kind of thing. And it's possible to pay a year in advance and get a little bit of a discount. Now, there's a similar thing on PayPal that's a subscription kind of thing. There are 3 levels. I've just got the neutron, proton, and quark level covered. It's a 5, 10, 20. Most people are 5. So lots of different ways that you can help support. I realize it makes me sound like PBS during campaign month, but it is there. Okay, he says, N1UGK says, thank you, Dave, for the helpful videos and the live stream. And thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Jerry Simonowitz is suggesting 146.52, which is the national calling frequency, as something that people should monitor for emergencies, which would be a very good idea. I've had my radio set for 146.52 sometimes for days, and I don't hear a call. But again, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, now N1UGK, this is their first super chat on a live stream. And so I would like to thank you very much for that. And welcome to the supporters who help out with the channel funds. Okay, T.H. Harmon. Hello for Texas. 73s from KD5MBQ. Jason or Hef, K4HEF. When I was young, I was a hand on the original Mayflower rebuild maiden voyage. Didn't know it at the time, but 20 years later I joined the Navy. Well, very good. Not Mayflower, he says Constitution, rather. Yeah, the Constitution is a show piece. Absolutely a show piece. And I don't think that was the one that got destroyed. I think it was a different private one. Because I don't think the Navy would have said, you'll be safer in the middle of a hurricane. Okay. R.S. Evening Day from Camarillo, California, which is not very far from where I used to live in Simi Valley. Thank you for being the Master Ham. Just put up my Hustler 6 BTV yesterday. Attaching radials next. Exciting. We'll get on the air with my ICOM 7300. And this is from Rick. Ken 6 UTF. Very good. Very good. You're getting on the air. Now, a suggestion. The first time you're on the air on HF, get a fellow club member or your mentor who brought you into ham radio or someone like that to meet you at a certain time on a certain frequency so that you can just make that first HF contact, because it's so different from VHF. VHF contacts are pretty quiet, but with single sideband you hear all the noise and static crashing and stuff like that. So you have to kind of get used to that. But do it with a mentor the first 2 or 3 or 5 times. Von Ziegel has added $10 to the chat revenue. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. Lou says, good evening all. Glenn Martin, hello from the far west Missouri area. 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 69% relative humidity, 2 1/2 inches of rain today. Flooding possible. Yes, I would imagine so. From N0QFT, we've got to go right through. We're taking the I-70 corridor from Colorado all the way to Dayton. And we decided that rather than tow the Jeep, we're going to just rent a car once we get to Dayton. And my wife will drop me at Dayton in the morning and pick me up in the afternoon. Now, usually the booths and stuff are not open in the evening, so everything shuts down around 5:30 or so. 5 to 5:30. Okay, well, stay dry there. Leo Gustafson says, I've been pondering the spreaders on my fiberglass X-beam. Why would fiberglass adhere to itself as in the connecting inner tube to the outer? Well, it shouldn't. But the problem I'm having with my X-beam, MFJ, it's broken right at the moment. I'm going to have to either bring it down for a while, but the problem is there you've got to kind of lean it on a ladder, or rent a lift to go up and repair that. The 40-meter element has come apart. The coating that was on the outside of the fiberglass spreaders has degraded in the UV, And so you've got all these little fuzzy things sticking up out there. And if you touch it with your hand, you'll get fiberglass stuck in your hand. And it's a very uncomfortable thing to do. One time I had to use a microscope and a very fine tweezers to get one piece out that was really bothering me. Now, you may have something like that. I mean, they're fairly close fit anyway. But can the heat and the water and all that cause that inner one with the coating on it to degrade? Maybe. That might be what happened. I wouldn't try to twist them apart. Those fiberglass tubes are not real good on torsion. Okay? Not good on torsion. They'll actually just splinter. You get vertical cracks all the way down them. So if they won't come apart, I don't know. So anyway, I can't answer your question. Just wonder if that's sort of what happened. Stephen Arbogast, fundamental physics, Maxwell's equations. Dipole is cool unless you need more gain. Now there's, if you aren't hearing stations that other people are, you need some sort of gain in your antenna. It's a little hard on 40. That's expensive. But 20 and on up, you can put up a hex beam, which will give you a little gain, or you can, put up a tower in the Yagi and get more gain. And that would be very nice. And I would think that, that's something a lot of people would do. I'd love to have a tower with a nice big 5-band beam up there. But all I've got on the tower is the hex beam. It's not a tower, it's a mast. 20-foot single stick Schedule 40 aluminum pipe. So it's hefty stuff. And it is not bending, but one of the wires on the 20-meter part where it comes and attaches to a separator has come loose from there. And the way they originally built it, it had a little ring connector on the end of it. It's pulled out of that. So I need to just either take that wire down and resolder it. You're not going to resolder in the air. The slightest air movement will blow the heat away. Or just something to crimp that'll hold it and keep it. Okay. Woo Riders DG. Dave, I heard in my time in the Air Force Intelligence that we had fiber optic technology back in the 1980s. Why do you suppose they are rolling it out still as new technology? You are absolutely correct. Fiber optics was the big thing back then. And the problem in the 70s was splicing it. You had to get a perfect cut, and the connectors had to come together and jam that together perfectly for the light to travel through there. That was the big problem, was the connectors. And they finally solved that somewhere plus or minus 5 years of 1980. And fiber optics was very expensive. And it was used for intercity communications and stuff. The fibers they had at the time, the question was raised, how would they react to a nuclear explosion? And the answer was they would darken. And of course that would immediately make it unusable because the slightest loss in that cable could be catastrophic. Now what has happened is it is normal in a data center. You have your rack full of computers, and on top is the switch. Now that'll switch between the computers in the rack, but it also connects the rack to the inter-rack cabling, which also connects to your internet connection. All that is fiber. All that is fiber. Because fiber is so much cheaper. Now, there's an electric utility just north of us in Montrose called the Delta Montrose Electric Association, and they have been working for the last several years on extending actual fiber to the home. And they've wired up maybe 30% or more of Montrose, and they provide extremely high speeds with that fiber. Of course, you pay for the speed, but you've got a very nice connection. We've kind of gone in circles here. The first connections were modem over copper phone lines, and then we went to ADSL, or just DSL, digital service line, over copper, and you could get 600 kilobits per second on those things. They're pretty good. I remember when that was really amazing. And then when you hit that bandwidth limit, the cable TV companies stepped in and found a way to use their existing cable network, copper cable, to bring a few megabits per second out to everybody. And that matured for many years until it finally started to get blown away. It's still the common way to do things in a lot of areas. Now, we don't have cable TV here. And then one that has been used by mom and pop internet service providers, like our Elite Broadband, is a terrestrial microwave. What they do is they'll take a dish, about this big around, and feed it with either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz stuff that you'd normally send out over a line. We've got a little radio in there, and you can set up a connection up to 10, 20 miles away, and it will give you a solid link at like 150 megabits per second. Now, what Elite Broadband did, there was a crusty old farmer who lived south of Montrose who wanted some decent internet, so he had his kid, Daniel, or I guess it was his nephew, set up a link back into town where he could tie into better internet service via Mobile, and that went on, and then he came up with this idea. He can sell this sort of thing as a service, because there are so many people around here who are so far away from either cable TV or other network providers. And we live too far away from the Ridgeway central office to use phone line based stuff. And anyway, that technology is just obsolete. So that's what we have. When I talk about local internet, I'm talking about a dish on a roof that's 5 gigahertz that talks to a dish up on a tower on top of Water Dog Mountain, and then from there talks to the Montrose headquarters, where they finally reach their next level service provider. And that was interesting. So they're working on that. Now the Starlink thing, I've got the perfect use case for Starlink, and I guess it's working tonight. It looks like what it's doing is, rather than quitting entirely, it's slowing down the connection, so you get kind of a herky-jerky video. For what we're doing, that's fine. So that is why it's, quote, new. Fiber to the subscriber is a phenomenon that we started to see, I think as many as 10 years ago, but has really started to get underway now. The problem with fiber to the subscriber is you have to lay it. You can't use existing copper wires. I mean, you hit the bandwidth limit, and you can do tricks that'll double it or triple it or something like that, but not by a factor of 100. So you need the fiber, and that fiber has to be laid in the ground. So it's tricky. It takes a while. But yes, you are absolutely right. The fiber optics technology around the late 70s, when I was in the Air Force, this was hot news that they finally came up with some progress on how to connect up pieces of fiber optic cable. Now, for the overseas cables, the submarine cables, if that cable breaks, they haul up the cable or both ends of the cable, and they actually take the fiber, and this is a microscopic process, and you got a whole bunch of fibers in there, so you got to do this for every one, figure out which one is which and all that. You actually bring the ends of the fibers together, heat it, and meld it so that you can't see that there was a break in the fiber. Now that's not a connector, that's repairing a cable, but they have to do that with all the undersea cables around the world that are fiber, and there are a lot. So, okay, UTV and Ham, KD9WNV, hello everyone. Woo Riders DG, hi UTV Ham from Florida, USA. And he says, hello, Stephen Arbogast. Lextronics has changed a lot since the days of MFJ. MFJ is not dead yet. Buy a nano VNA, much better for less dollars. The problem I have with nano VNAs, and I've got one, and I use it regularly, and you see that in the videos. The problem with the nano VNA is that it's built of, by, and for computer programmers in Linux. Okay? So if you're not in that tight little group, this thing can be really counterintuitive. Fortunately, I had a couple different people try and pull me through that, and between the two of them, I got it figured out and got figured out how I could do what I needed to do. And yes, a nano VNA is much less expensive than any of the other analyzers. But now they say that if you buy, this is the tiny spectrum analyzer right here, tiny SA. They say buy these from R&L Electronics because this is the authorized dealer for these things. But they're open, R&L right here. They are open source, so anybody can make one. How well they make it, you don't know. So that's why they're saying buy from R&L. But I just heard somebody say here that R&L Electronics they're having issues too. So I don't know. Okay, Harry Rundle, hello Dave and fellow Augies from AC3EK in Overley, Maryland. Temp 76, 49% humidity. Good evening to sit out on the back porch and enjoy the insects. KN4MDE, radioactive, hello from Alabama. 77 and cloudy, rain headed this way for the weekend. James Gordon, hello from K2JEG in Poughkeepsie, New York. That was a town that was, where'd we go? Here, James Gordon. K2JEG in Poughkeepsie. Poughkeepsie was an IBM town. It may still be, I don't know. There was a big shoe manufacturer there. And Thomas Watson Sr. was very impressed at how the shoe manufacturer ran his factory because he ran it treating employees truly as his most important resource. If a particular technology was not used anymore, he'd retrain the worker. And so Thomas Watson set up his plant there for the country club for the employees. And he had, and he started with the things that made IBM famous. And it was true. If your particular job was eliminated, you'd be retrained to do something else. And during the Depression, rather than lay people off, he had enough resources to keep them on making spare parts so that they would have them anticipating the end of the war. And he built a lot of stuff for the Census Bureau. Now, I know that IBM sold some equipment where they shouldn't have. And, but I think people are pretty well satisfied that that was just the business environment back then. But the old IBM, when I joined it the first time, they were very much like that. When you got a job with IBM, you had a job for life. But then they sold the division I was in, and me with it, to Loral. Loral merged with Lockheed. And, of course, all that employee coddling was gone. And I went to, I left Lockheed and went back to IBM. It was a totally different company by then. So, let's see, where are we? Poughkeepsie, I think Endicott was another place that they did it. Wayne Marsh, hello from Wayne, and for QYO from White Bluff, Tennessee. The bands are terrible tonight. Yeah, we're not going to try doing anything with them tonight. Chris Goodman, K0BLU, getting my shopping list ready for sunsetting MFJ products. Besides your reference station, setting up a toolkit for one's ham shack just got a little weird. Yeah, I know. A lot of things are disappeared. Personally, I'm very disappointed in MFJ closing and thus putting 200 people out of work rather than allowing themselves be bought and keeping those employees going. That bothers me. That bothers me. I mean, it just feels like a piece of ego on the part of Martin Jew to say, okay, I'm old, so we won't do any of this anymore. I would much rather he said, I've really built something worthwhile to the ham community. I'm going to hand it over to somebody who can carry on. But I don't know. Okay, let's see. Neon Suspenders, howdy, KF0SM. Storming pretty good right now. Antennas staying down this evening. KF0MSN. Stephen Arbogast, today the world of electronics and ham radio is very different. I was advanced back in the 60s. Yes, we'll get a license again. If you get your tech, you'll automatically have your general. You'll be upgraded to general. Now, that's because advanced is not a currently offered license class. So, Chris Goodman has added $10 to the chat revenue and is waiting for MFJ's successor. Yes, we all are. UTV and ham, KD9WNV, gotta go, 73 to all. Silvermine 203, an extra comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. Thank you. Optical Man Jeff has added $15 to the chat revenue and says, thanks, Dave, for all you do. We love the videos and all the information. Best regards. Mark French Pride of Baltimore was the name of the ship, I think. Thank you. Yeah, they were stupid taking that thing out into the middle of a storm. I mean, I realize the old saying, ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for. Okay, I understand that. But then the first part of that is ships are safe in harbor. Okay, so go find a harbor, put your anchor down in the middle of it, and endure the storm. This idea of thinking you can do better on the open seas was a fatal mistake. Okay, Optical Man Jeff, thanks for all you do. We love the videos and all the information. Thank you. Stephen Arbogast has added $10 to the chat revenue, and thank you very much. Leo Gustafsson has added $10 to the chat revenue and says, thank you for considering this debacle I'm currently in, Dave. Well, keep working on it. Bill, persevere. That's the word, right? Persevere. Bill Myers, KA0OG, thanks for all that you do for ham radio. Well, I try. I really try. I've told you this story probably several times, so you're going to go, oh, there's an old man telling the same story again. But when I first became a ham and graduated from college, I went into the Montrose Radio Club, Montrose, California Radio Club, as a novice. And I needed a key really badly. I didn't have a key. And so they were trying to auction off a key, simple key. And I was going, come on, guys, I don't have a key. Well, I finally got it for $3, but I don't know. There was a bunch of old people. Old, I mean, not really old like now, but people in their 40s, 50s, stuff like that. And, a lot of these people didn't have time for novices. Novices, we all kind of supported each other. And I remember asking a question that I really did not know the answer to. And people joked with me. The answer was a joke. The question was, how long should your coax cable be? And the joke answer was, long enough to reach the antenna. Ha ha ha. Well, as it turns out, I thought that was the joke answer. I thought there had to be particular lengths that the cable had to be. And I finally did discover that the correct answer to the question of how long should your cable be is long enough to reach the antenna. And that is it. There is no special length for a cable as long as your antenna's reasonably well matched. If it's not matched, things get a little weird, but if it's matched, any length of cable will do. If it's a perfect match, truly any length of cable will do. So ever since then, and another thing that happened to me in high school, I was taking a biology class, and we had a really weird professor. And he had this thing about, if you're asked a question, you need to come up with the answer yourself. You can't rely on your classmates. And that just absolutely rubbed me the wrong way. And one time, a classmate was asked a question by the teacher, and I whispered the answer out the corner of my mouth, and he kicked me out of the class for the rest of the day. And that pissed me off so much that I said, if anybody ever asks me a question and I know the answer, I will tell them the answer. And I know when I went to work at Northrop in 1980, there was a little bit of this, if you're an engineer, you don't tell everybody everything, because you could put yourself out of a job. And my approach to that was, If somebody needs to know something, tell them everything they need to know. And I ended up solidifying my job because I ended up literally writing the book on the product we were making about that thing. It was the guidance, not the guidance, it was the inertial measurement unit for the MX missile. It was the most accurate navigation instrument known to mankind at the time. And I wrote the book on it. Not only that, I was asked to teach about it. I put over 200 engineers through that class and taught it several times. So, in my humble opinion, the best thing to do is to share the information that you have. So, anyway, Stephen Arbogast, Tim Webb, Leo, thank you for considering, and Bill Myers, thank you for all that you do for amateur radio. Thank you. Chris Goodman, K0BLU, I would add that waiting for a successor to MFJ may be like the play Waiting for Godot, an ongoing conversation between frugal hams for the ever imminent announcement. Yes. Oh, I don't know, maybe maybe DX Engineering's offer wasn't good enough, you know. It always takes a while. And I sure found this out on the airplane. People will bid way low. I had a guy right up at the front of this said, your airplane has crashed. It's going to need very thorough inspections. I don't trust it. It's got the old Jabiru engine in it. I'll give you half of what you're asking for and consider yourself lucky. And I sent a very quick email back to him that said, no, thank you. And so, you know, I didn't sell it for what I asked for it, but I think I got a reasonable price. So, Bill Myers, let's see, Chris Goodman, waiting for a successor to MFJ may be like the play Waiting for Godot, an ongoing conversation between frugal hams for the ever imminent announcement. Who knows? Phil KA2QIK, hello all from rainy Kalamazoo, Michigan. Michigan, yeah. Chris Goodman, K0BLU, an ongoing dialogue of perseverance, existentialism, and self-invention. John AC8XU, I have the MFJ 993B automatic antenna tuner, fantastic at tuning my loop. I have the same antenna tuner, and my 10-tac did not have a built-in antenna tuner. So the 993B sat right on top of that and was excellent. I had an 80-meter full-length horizontal loop that I fed initially with ladder line, but later with coax up to a 4-to-1 balun. And that thing would tune up just so sweet for me. And it was fast. It would remember its settings and so on. So, yeah. King Wacky, my dad is a construction worker, has horror stories of broken fiber delaying projects by months due to no ground markings. Oh, lovely. One of the things you need to do if you're going to lay a fiber optic cable, lay in the trench with it some copper weld or even just a piece of copper, you know, number 14 copper single strand in there so that a metal detector will find it. Because otherwise there's no way to find that. And then you end up with the great backhoe interrupt, where they dig up the cable that nobody knew about or somebody had forgotten about, and it takes a long time for people to get there and repair the cable, and a lot of shouting between the backhoe operator and the cable owner and the homeowner and so on. I mean, do something to make that cable findable. Okay, let's see. We're getting down toward the. Oh, we are out of time. Let's quickly run through these. Let the legacy live on. Intellitron is the new MFJ. Leo Gustafson, as for me, coming into amateur radio late and faithfully purchasing a couple items from MFJ, I felt that in recent years their support was wanting. This was the case with the CW Keyer reader, yes. It's true. I mean, they were subject to the same. This is that bit about the pandemic and support and so on. They had to, a lot of their staff couldn't work there and so on. Okay. Interstellar Starman, you rock, sir. Keep it up. I will try. Ralph Leland, 73 Dave, and everyone K4TA. Have a nice evening. Leo, as from my own vocation, near the end of that company, Skinny Mutt, read Greyhound, personal care and consideration fell off by many of my comrades. Bo Patterson, as a newbie, your videos have been invaluable to me. Taught me a lot, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Stephen Arbogast, with due respect to MFJ, they were outdated. My call back in the 1960s was WA0TIU, and anyone ever encountered my call sign worked on many projects over the years. They were, like I said, they would make a project and then just keep selling it. Now, that was not true with the antenna analyzers. They did update those. Bill Myers, love your story about sharing information in your job. I don't remember how many times I was told you're an engineer you figured out. Says I hated that. Glenn Martin, thank you for all you do for the amateur radio community. John Braze, Dave, on your way to Dayton between the Indiana and Illinois border and Indy, 14652 is very active. Give us a call as you pass through. I will do that. I am taking a radio in the motorhome, 2 meter and 440. Chris Goodman, 73 to you. Sean says MFJ is awesome. And I will say good night to all of you. Thank you very, very much for joining and for helping the chat revenue go up. This is all going into the gas tank of the motorhome as we go across the country. And I really, really do hope to meet you at Dayton. Now, I will be here next week because we don't leave for Dayton until the next week. So, until we next meet, 73.